Chiamaka Adeyemi stepped out of her black Mercedes onto the rain-slicked streets of Lagos, her stilettos clicking against the pavement as thunder rolled across the night sky. 6 years in London had transformed the once shy daughter of a businessman into a force to be reckoned with, law degree in hand and vengeance in her heart. She'd returned to claim what was rightfully hers after her father's mysterious murder. "Welcome home, Miss Adeyemi," said her driver, Kofi, as he opened an umbrella over her head. "Your uncle has arranged a welcome dinner at the estate, Uncle Adeola." Just thinking of him made her blood boil. The man who had stepped in to run her father's empire, both legitimate and otherwise, with suspicious timing. The Adeyemi compound stood as it always had, a sprawling testament to generational wealth and power in the heart of Ikoyi. As she entered the grand hall, conversations hushed. Chiamaka recognized faces from her childhood, lieutenants of her father's organization, now loyal to her uncle. Niece. Uncle Tunde's voice boomed as he descended the marble staircase. "How you've grown." "Uncle," she replied coldly, accepting his embrace with practiced grace. From across the room, her eyes locked with a man she didn't recognize. Tall and powerfully built, with intensity in his dark eyes that made her breath catch. He inclined his head slightly, the ghost of a smile on his full lips. "Obinna Okafor," Uncle Tunde introduced, noticing her interest. "My new head of security." "Pleasure," Ezekiel said, his voice deep and smooth like aged whiskey. What Tunde didn't mention was that Ezekiel was the heir to the rival Okafor syndicate that controlled the Eastern Territories. Their fathers had been bitter enemies. Later that night, as Chiamaka unpacked in her old bedroom, a note slipped under her door. "Your father wasn't murdered by rivals. Look closer to home. Meet me at the old lighthouse tomorrow at midnight if you want the truth." It wasn't signed, but she knew. Ezekiel Okafor had just changed everything. The lighthouse loomed like a silent sentinel above the jagged shoreline. Amara's heart raced as she ascended the weather-beaten steps, one hand brushing against the small pistol hidden in her jacket. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Ezekiel stood at the edge of the railing, moonlight etching shadows across his face. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "Start talking," Amara said, keeping her distance. "Our fathers were enemies, yes, but they had respect for one another," Ezekiel began. "When mine uncovered Tunde's plan, he tried to warn your father." His jaw clenched. But he was too late. 3 days later, someone torched our family compound. "My uncle," Amara whispered, the pieces falling into place. "He built his empire on blood. Yours, mine." A bolt of lightning lit the stormy sea below. In its flare, Amara saw the scars etched across Ezekiel's neck and arms. Burns left by the fire that destroyed his family. "Why infiltrate his empire instead of taking him out?" she asked. "He has powerful friends." "I needed evidence, allies." His gaze met hers. "And I needed you." That night, their alliance was born, forged in grief and bound by vengeance. But in the weeks that followed, late-night strategy meetings gave way to something more, something dangerous. Amara began navigating the family's illicit empire, using her legal knowledge to expose her uncle's money laundering schemes. Ezekiel trained her to shoot, his hands lingering on her shoulders, her waist. "You're playing with fire," warned Falake, Amara's cousin and the only one she trusted. "I've seen the way you look at him." "It's just business," Amara replied. But later that night, when Ezekiel pulled her into an empty office during one of Tunde's extravagant parties, business was the last thing on her mind. His lips crashed into hers with years of pent-up anger and longing. "This complicates everything," she murmured against his mouth. "Everything worth having is," he said, fingers weaving through her hair. Neither of them saw the blinking security camera in the corner, or Tunde's right-hand man watching the feed, smiling coldly with calculation. "You disappoint me, niece." Uncle Tunde's voice sliced through the heavy silence of his office like a blade. Amara kept her expression composed, though cold dread coiled in her chest. On his desk lay surveillance photos, she and Ezekiel at the lighthouse exchanging documents and kisses. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Tunde prowled around her like a predator. "Okafor's son of all people, the enemy in my bed and my business." "You're one to talk about betrayal," Amara snapped, the facade falling. "You killed my father, your own brother." Tunde let out a hollow laugh. "Business is business. Family is just Convenient, he nodded toward his guards. Take her to the warehouse. Make sure our friend Ezekiel knows exactly where to find her. The trap was sprung. With a jolt of horror, Amara realized she had become the bait. Hours later, chained to a chair in a deserted waterfront warehouse, Amara flinched at the sound of gunfire. The door burst open. Ezekiel stormed in, gun blazing, just as Tunde had planned. "Ezekiel, stop! It's a trap!" she shouted. Too late. Guards emerged from hidden corners. A bullet struck Ezekiel in the shoulder, spinning him down to his knees. From the shadows, Tunde stepped forward, clapping slowly. "Young love!" So predictable. He pressed the barrel of his gun to Ezekiel's temple. "Wait!" Amara's mind raced. "Kill him and you'll never find it." Tunde paused. "Find what?" "My father's ledger. The real one, with all your crimes documented. I've hidden it." The lie came smoothly. "Kill either of us and it goes straight to the authorities." For the first time, uncertainty flashed in Tunde's eyes. Fear, subtle but undeniable. "You have 24 hours, he said at last, lowering his weapon. "Bring me this ledger, or I'll kill him slowly. Then you." Once they were gone, Falami slipped from the shadows and began unlocking their chains. "I can get you out of the country tonight," she whispered. But Ezekiel, bloodied and defiant, shook his head. "No more running." Amara gently tended his wound, their foreheads pressed together. "There is no ledger," she admitted. "Then we'll have to make one," he said, kissing her. Blood and promise mingled between them. Dawn broke over Lagos as Amara stood before the assembled captains of her father's organization. Men and women who had served the Adeyemi family for generations now looked at her with uncertain eyes. Behind her, Ezekiel stood watch near the doors, his injured arm bound in a makeshift sling. "My uncle has betrayed not just my father, but all of you," she declared. "The territory disputes with the Okafors, the police raids on our operations, all orchestrated by him to consolidate power." Murmurs stirred among the crowd. Trust was currency in their world, and Tunde had spent his recklessly. "The daughter speaks truth," said a voice from the back. An elderly woman stepped forward. Mama Kosi, the revered spiritual advisor who had guided Lagos crime families for decades. "I've seen the signs. Tunde's greed has awakened old spirits. Blood must answer for blood." By midday, battle lines were drawn. Lagos became a chessboard of shifting loyalties. Gunfire rang out in markets. Businesses shuttered their doors as Tunde's loyalists clashed with those who had sworn allegiance to Amara. "This isn't what I wanted," Amara whispered, her voice heavy with grief as casualty reports trickled into their safe house. "Empires aren't built or reclaimed without sacrifice," Ezekiel replied, loading his gun. "Your father knew that. Mine did too." As night fell, their opportunity came. A mole inside Tunde's circle, turned by promises of protection and territory, gave them access to the compound's security systems. Amara led the charge, no longer the London-educated lawyer but her father's daughter, heir to a dynasty that had ruled the Lagos underworld for generations. Room by room they retook the compound. At last, they found Tunde in her father's old office. He looked diminished somehow, seated behind the imposing desk. "You could never understand what it takes to rule," he spat. "Your father was weak. I made this organization what it is." Ezekiel raised his gun, vengeance burning in his eyes. But Amara stopped him with a hand on his arm. "No," she said quietly, "he's still blood." Instead, she produced her phone and played a recording, Tunde's confession, captured at the warehouse. The truth spilled from the speaker. Fratricide, the orchestration of the Okafor massacre. "You won't kill me," Tunde sneered, though fear flickered behind his bravado. "You don't have what it takes." "You're right," Amara answered. "Justice will do that for me." As sirens blared in the distance, Tunde lunged for a hidden weapon. Ezekiel fired without hesitation. The empire that had cost them everything crumbled in an instant. Amara stood on the balcony of her family's restored home, gazing out as the sun dipped behind the skyline of Lagos. The city had healed in the way cities do, its wounds from last year's gang war already fading into whispered legend. The alliance between the Adeyemi and Okafor families had redrawn the underworld's borders. Under Amara's leadership, much of their operation had been cleaned up. Hotels, shipping lines, tech ventures, yet just enough of the old methods remained to ensure their grip stayed firm. "Penny for your thoughts," Ezekiel said as he joined her at the railing. Marriage had smoothed his rough edges, though the warrior inside still lingered. The gold ring on his finger glinted in the last light of day. "I was thinking about my father," she said, "wondering if he'd approve of what we've built from the ruins." "A legacy isn't judged by its purity," Ezekiel replied, wrapping his arms around her, "only by its endurance." In the garden below, Falami oversaw security for the night's gathering, a celebration of the merger between the city's remaining crime families, now united under their watch. Peace through strength, order through unity. "Any word from Inspector Khalid?" Ezekiel asked, referring to the police commissioner who now worked in their favour, a strategic partnership born of careful negotiation. "He sends his regrets," Amara replied, with a small smile. "Apparently he's busy chasing ghosts. Those corruption charges don't investigate themselves. They both knew the truth. It was their carefully leaked evidence that had taken down their last rivals and boosted Khalid into a position where loyalty was a matter of survival." As night settled around them, Amara placed a hand on her stomach. The gentle swell was their secret for now, a new life growing, a true union of bloodlines and legacy. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Everything we've done?" Ezekiel turned to her, cupping her face with a gentleness only she ever saw. "Regret is a luxury we don't get to have," he said. "But love? That's the one indulgence I'll never give up." Inside, their guests were waiting. Once enemies, now allies bound by shared interest and ambition. A new order, born from the ashes of the old. "Come," Amara said, taking his hand. "We have an empire to rule." And together they stepped back inside, as Lagos spread out before them in a glittering tapestry of shadow and light, a hard-won kingdom where danger and desire would always share the throne.